In terms of, you talk a lot about using digital marketing, Facebook, success of things like Instagram, YouTube. I'm clearly a big believer in that. So in terms of the sales funnel, how do you then kind of bring people in? Let's focus on the boutique at the moment. So you've got a boutique business. How do you bring them in using some of those different, or what place do some of those different digital things play in that process? And then when does the call come into play? And is that conditional depending on what people have done prior to that? It's quite a lot there, but...
No, certainly the landscape has changed, as you know. And here's what I've learned is that, yes, there's a place to pay companies to do your digital advertising. You need that. And regardless of the climate, and now, we're not seeing as many leads come in the industry as before the pandemic, of course, but you still need it, right? But there's nothing that replaces an organic piece of content. And so where I think the industry is headed is more YouTube, second largest platform in the world, right? Search platform in the world, and very rarely used by companies, individuals.
I was very surprised actually when I look at all the big brands. There's very few that do YouTube well. The ones that do YouTube well, I would say, are the sort of millennial businesses that are very sort of grassroots, doing a great job, but anomalies. Any of the big brands, they're just shocking when you look at what they do.
Oh, absolutely. And listen, this spawned from, myself. And when I started to create content, I was all about, it's got to be professional. Like I would look at it, erase it. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to need a Shure microphone that costs $1,000. And what I learned though is that our head coaches or our general managers, the boots on the ground in our studios, they would just throw up a post in front of the studio and it would get 10 times more engagement than any other professional post that we would do. And
I can, for anyone who's listening about marketing, we've tested this. We've spent thousands and thousands on both videos. And you're absolutely right. The one on the camera will outperform a video that costs 10 grand to produce, which is quite surprising.
It's unbelievable. And until you go through that evolution and see it happening. And so, I have head coaches that were like, listen, we're going to film some stuff. Just trust us. We'll turn it over to you guys and just boost it. And that's actually turned into quite a few leads, but not only just from, we tend to think about Facebook, Instagram, right? One of the things we did at F45 was we had a change in mindset because, as you know, during the pandemic, we weren't spending thousands of dollars on digital advertising. We sort of shut that off. And so we were forced to do organic stuff. And so, you'd be surprised though, on a daily basis, the coaching that we had to do with our studios, even now, which is when someone follows you, they are a lead. And so we started to not only were able to pivot and get engagement. So if someone followed your Instagram feed, we would then direct message them back and they become part of the sales funnel. And so, it's a change in mindset, but leads don't just call. I wish leads were like the old days where they would walk-ins, and just call, but those days are over. They happen still, depending on where you're at. But other platforms I really looked at, like LinkedIn. For lead generation, you find another professional. I'm going to say I'm the only one that has not only written about using LinkedIn as a lead generator, but continuously preach about it. I've done a lot of content on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is such a great platform to search for a local company in your community. When you do that, you have a list of employees that work there, and you can message them for free. Where else can you do that, right? And then YouTube, just to engage your audience on a continual basis, and it's long format, 5 minutes, 6 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it is, which is what you can't do on Instagram. So social has changed, but I think it's a lot better nowadays to think in terms of lead generation using all those platforms, not just be so narrow-minded to the ones we used to use.
Right. And I saw on your LinkedIn, you do some interviews or testimonials with clients, which is quite powerful. Is there any other things that you found have been successful from a lead generation outside of some of the sort of traditional things that you would see, like a testimonial or a tour or that kind of thing?
Yeah, so I've talked to a lot of people in the industry, and what we know is nothing beats a great testimonial. And so, pulling an organic piece of content from a member, pull them outside the studio, what do you love about the workout today? We recently had someone in Arizona. It was her 500th workout with us at VillaFit. And it was just inspiring.
I watched that one actually, yeah.
Yeah, it was just inspiring. I mean, you can't fake it, right? So listen, you could do anything on social media nowadays, but to have a member talk about how she's been coming 500 times is pretty powerful.
All right.
So nothing, again, it comes down to organic. 80% of your content, I believe, should be organic. 20% should be professional and just support everything else you're doing in the studio.
So when you do your LinkedIn, your YouTubes, how does that, where are you driving people to then to get do you eventually sort of have a process where you get them to a lead page to get their number to call them, or what?
It'll be a MindBody lead page typically,
right.
Or obviously your Instagram studio. I love Instagram as a platform, no surprise there. But it's so easy. It's so easy for the GM or the head coach to manipulate who's in charge of that, and then just engagement, right? Half of social is being engaged with the audience. It's one of the things I learned. I put out all this content, and I would just, people would DM me, and I just didn't have time to do anything and get back to them. But that's not what you do on social media. And so I think nowadays it's all about engaging with the audience, funneling them down to your studio page. So there's a call to action so they could take advantage of some sort of trial or membership or something like that.
So how would you do it if you have a lot of locations? So in the F45 case, would you have your brand page where you would kind of be managing different testimonials, brand story, etc., and then would you take people to your local geographical one?
Yeah, it's interesting. The corporate aspect of it is a little bit more general, right? But what I spend most of my time doing is coaching the owners of the franchises, because they need a lot of help, right? They need a lot of help in terms of they're not social media savvy many times. Sometimes they don't even know the fitness business. They invested in fitness and they hire the right people, but at the end of the day, they need to learn that type of stuff. So it's funneling them into the specific studio. And so you have your main message, obviously from a corporate standpoint. Each studio, depending upon where they're at, might be different in terms of their trial. One might have a 2-day trial or 7-day, but it's really about the trial, not about specifics, right? And so then it's about the call to action and what they're doing on a studio basis, because the markets are different depending on what state you're in.
So from your perspective, there'll be sort of more of a generic brand message, and you would be encouraging the local ones to take a more personalized local approach with their own Instagram, YouTube, whatever pages themselves.
Yeah, I really try to coach to start thinking about YouTube. I believe you're going to see a big uptick over the next couple of years in terms of the use of YouTube with companies like we talked about. The great thing about Boutique is, you do have that one-on-one time with the owner. Because at the end of the day, listen, they make the decisions. I could strongly recommend what they do, but I can't tell them what to do. And so when I was with Big Box, it was great. But at the end of the day, I think one of the reasons why I left is it's hard to make an imprint in a Big Box gym, especially with some of the biggest brands out there, right? I don't call the CEO up and go, because I want to change this. That doesn't happen, right? There's a lot of processes that must be met. Boutique's different. And so you could be a little bit more creative on that front. And so that's what I love about it. And what we started to do now over the last year or two is teach them a little bit more savviness around social and how to take ownership of that and be responsible as well.